Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Visual Studio Toolbox Live. I'm your host, Leslie Richardson, and today we're going to be talking about how Visual Studio 2022 can help speed up your web dev experience. And joining me today to give his state of the ASP.NET address is Senior Program Manager Sayed. What's up, Sayed?
Hello, what's going on, Leslie? It's always great to be here. Thank you very much.
Yeah, nice to have you as always.
Mhm.
So, before we dive in, do you want to share a little bit about yourself?
Sure. Yeah, senior program manager working at Microsoft. Will be about 12 years in June. And yeah, always been kind of working in and around the ASP.NET space there, and right now we're doing the tooling in Visual Studio for ASP.NET and ASP.NET Core, and yeah, a lot of kind of cool updates and some kind of early previews of a couple of features that haven't been released yet. So yeah, that's generally how we'll do it today. And one thing that I did want to mention was, I'm running like a daily build of Visual Studio over here, and also previews of the SDK. So should I run into any issues, they're not my fault. They're the build's fault. You know what I mean? So yeah,
Awesome.
exactly. Uh huh.
Yep.
That's right. That's right.
I like that disclaimer. None of it is Sayed's fault. Cool.
Exactly.
Yeah, so ASP.NET, it's something that a lot of people use for web development and Visual Studio. So, what are some of
hmm
the pitfalls that people can fall into typically? And I guess from there we can transition into.
Oh, sure. Right. Okay, great. Yeah. One of well, yeah, sure. So, I think, well, I'm not sure if this is really a pitfall, but one thing that I'm planning on demoing here is, how do you secure your web application, right? That is very kind of difficult, and authentication is always kind of evolving, right? It seems like every year there's a new way or a new kind of set of best practices to follow there. So, it's incredibly difficult to authenticate to properly kind of secure these web apps, right? And in particular, the SPA types of web apps, the web apps that are fully client side, that has historically been very kind of difficult to create a SPA that's fully secured. So we're gonna show today how we can create a Blazor WebAssembly project and authenticate that with the Microsoft Identity Platform or Azure AD basically, and pretty much show that. So yeah, I think that's not really a pitfall, but something that's very difficult, not only in ASP.NET, but in web technology in general. So we'll show that. Um, I think another kind of feature that we have, a couple other features that we have to increase productivity. Another one is hot reload. So I'll be showing a little bit of hot reload here. Some of the viewers may have seen hot reload and other demos there, but some of them may have not as well. And then also just the kind of editing experience. We've made a lot of kind of editor updates for when you're creating those views, whether they're Razor files or CSHTML files or whatever kind of views you're kind of creating there. So yeah, so I think that's kind of something that's very difficult with ASP.NET and web technology in general. I think another kind of I think another kind of area that's difficult for ASP.NET in particular is really for new users. There's a broad set of options, right? You've got ASP.NET Core with Razor pages or with MVC, or with Blazor, and then Blazor, there's a couple options there too. You've got Blazor Server and Blazor WebAssembly. So I think it can be hard for people to get started and know which one of those paths that they want to go down. So I think that's kind of also something that's kind of tricky for ASP.NET Core. Um, but yeah, it's kind of difficult. And what I recommend for people getting started really is, they ask me, they say, hey, should I do Razor Pages or MVC or Blazor? And if they don't have any,
Blazor with a different server. Yeah.
yeah, that's right, that's right. So I'd say, hey, in some cases, it's kind of a clear cut decision, right? Like, let's say if you want a SPA that's a PWA, a progressive web app, right? Then the recommendation is pretty clear. You want to try and do Blazor WebAssembly there. But for the other ones, my recommendation is really, take a small project and try it with each. and see which kind of meets your workflow better, right? There'll be some people who prefer the structure and the opinionated perspective of the MVC framework, and others will prefer the kind of the less kind of opinionated approach of both Razor Pages as well as Blazor. So yeah, I think just give it a shot if you're new, and try different types of web apps there, and then pick whichever kind of meets your needs and suits your style the best. But at the end of the day, you can achieve all the same kind of things with Razor Pages or MVC, and but with Blazor WASM, that comes with some kind of special capabilities there for the PWA. Yeah.
Awesome. Wasm being WebAssembly, right?
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Yeah.
Sweet. So shall we dive into how to get started?
Yeah. Yeah.
Great.
Let's go and dive into it then. All right. So first, what I'll show you is how can we create and this is something I can't remember if this was released already or if it's coming in the next preview, but if you download the latest preview and you don't see this capability, then that means it will be in the upcoming preview that will be released next. All right, I'll go ahead and do create project here. So we're going to pick a Blazor project type here. So let me search for, let me just scroll down over here, I guess, for Blazor. So we saw the Blazor server that's here. So with server, you have a server component that's running there. So that's not what we want. We want just the full client-side web app here. So we'll say Blazor WASM demo 09 or something like that. Go ahead and create that. So now here I'm going to go ahead and pick in the authentication option here. Now we have this Microsoft Identity Platform option that's going to light up for Blazor WebAssembly. This option, sorry about that. This option has been showing up for the other project types, for the other ASP.NET projects. And then I'll just go with the defaults. I don't really need to create a PWA here, and doesn't need to be ASP.NET Core hosted. So let's go ahead and create this. All right, so how this works is the project will go ahead and get created. We can see that the project was created here. One second here. Maybe I made a mistake. Just one second. Let me try it one more time. Sure.
You didn't make a mistake. You build made a mistake.
Yeah, that's right. But it's supposed to drop into something, right? So now I got that selected for sure. Let's go ahead and create that. It's supposed to, okay, well, it didn't do it. So we must have some kind of, hold on a second. Let me try it with this other, I think I was using the wrong version there. My bad. Let's try it one more time.
A staple of everyone who works in DevDiv. We all have 4 different versions of Visual
Studio. Yeah, I know. I was wondering,
right.
I was wondering why it wasn't showing up in my most recent used list here.
Like, we were both at the Dev Intersections conference this past week, and when I was rehearsing my demo, I was using the wrong version of Visual Studio on accident. So I was really confused that features that I was supposed to explore weren't there. I'm like, where are they? My talk is
yeah, I know. Yeah, it's always, it can be confusing. I think I have 4 or 5 different versions installed over here. All right, so the project was created like we saw in the previous version, but the addition that's here is now it automatically launches into connected services and then prompts me for that, add authentication flow. So the first step is to install a tool, the .NET MS Identity tool. And you can use this tool on the command line as well. All right, so now here is where I'm going to go ahead and configure my authentication. So we can see that I'm already signed in to Azure AD with a specific tenant user here. And here you can create additional, if you have more than one tenant, you can pick it in this drop down, and in my case, I just have one. So now we can create a new application, or you can select an existing application. So you just give it a name, and then click register, and that will create that application. I'll go ahead and pick an existing one that I have here. Go ahead and click next. All right, so if you're planning on having this project called the Microsoft Graph, you can check this checkbox to add those permissions. And if you have any other APIs that are being managed by Azure, you can add those permissions here as well. We're going to skip that part of it. This is just a brief summary of what's happening. The code will be changed. Some NuGet packages will be installed, and Azure AD will be updated with this application here. Let's go ahead and click Finish. So here it's actually calling the .NET MS Identity tool, and we can see that right here, basically. Where is it? .NET MS Identity --update project. So if you need to do this on the command line, you can always try it in Visual Studio and get the exact commands that you need, and then kind of copy and paste that. And we can see that it has successfully completed. Let's go ahead and close that.
I like
All right,
that
I'm gonna.
step-by-step walkthrough.
Yeah, that was
Great.
great. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it was so simple as well. And a lot of times the difficulty here is really in configuring all the Azure stuff, right?
Right.
If you try to configure all this stuff manually, it could take you days, and you might not actually be successful at it. Let's go ahead and run this and see what happens. Okay, let's see. Okay, so it's over here. Let me bring it over. All right, so we got that one. Let me snap this over here as well. Let's get some stuff going. All right, so now we can see that I've got this login button over here. So let me go ahead and try to log in. So I have to sign in with that account. So Sayed Okay, let me go ahead and click next here. Go ahead and provide my password. Sure, yeah, I'll go ahead and let it save my password. That's fine. And yes on that one as well. All right, so now we can see that I'm fully kind of logged in over here. So I've got my full name that's coming from the Azure AD, and then also logout button. One thing that I'm noticing here is this about button, and let me check to see where that's going to take me. All right, so that's going to take me to some Microsoft Docs here. So what I want to do is go ahead and get rid of that because I don't really need that in my application. So if I go to main layout, let me make this a little bit smaller, and let me bring this index back in. All right, so there's our about. So now, the about link itself is here basically. So here's the about link. I'm going to go ahead and remove this about link. And then I'm going to use this hot reload to apply the update. So keep an eye out, not only on the about link, but also in the top left area, there should be a little check mark that shows up when hot reload applies. So you saw that little check mark, the check mark animation there. That's an indication that hot reload has applied updates and it removed the about button. So in the past, if I were to do that, I would have to, stop my running application, rebuild, and restart my app there. All right, so that's what we got going on.
I love hot reload.
Yeah, I think that's one of the one of my favorite features as well. Great kind of productivity enhancer there. Let me go to the counter here, so I can see now I've got my counter here, and what I want to do is I want to change this to where I have to authenticate in order to view and interact with this counter. So I'm going to go to the counter page. Let's make that full screen, and I believe I have a snippet here that we can use. So let's make this bigger. Yeah, there we go. Let me go ahead and drag this over. So all I did was I created an authorized view, and then inside the authorized view, you have an authorized component and a not authorized component. So if the user is authorized, we'll go ahead and show the regular counter stuff, which I just copied and pasted here. So let me delete that part. And then if the user is not authorized, they will see this the sign-in link here. So let me go ahead and apply that as well. This may require us to rebuild, but hot reload will simplify that for us. So yeah, it just prompted me to do a rebuild, and that's actually not like the same type of rebuild as what you would manually do inside Visual Studio. We kind of it's kind of like a faster version of the build essentially. So we can see, I can see the counter and I can interact with it, but I am signed in. So let me go ahead and log out, and then we'll try it again.
So has that authorized keyword always been available to use, or is that a new addition?
This is a tag helper or a component, and I believe this has been around for a little while. Yeah, that's right.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, that's
Just
awesome.
run the app again.
You don't have to like.
Yep. Yeah, that's pretty cool, right? So let me go back to the counter page. I should be prompted to log in, I believe. So from here, I'll log in. But yeah, so the component was there already, but the part that was brand new was the Blazor WASM AAD integration in Visual Studio that kind of enabled those features for us. Let me go ahead and sign out again one more time. Say no thanks as well. Let me go back to the home page. Okay, great. So now let's take a look at fetch data page here. So on this page, what I want to do is something different. So on this page, I want to make sure that the user signed in before they can even see the page, right? So on the counter page, if I'm not logged in, there is some opportunity to see the content. All right, so from here on the fetch data page, I can use the authorize attribute. How does it go? It's like this, I believe, and then I'll control dot to bring the missing using here. And this is a feature that's relatively new as well. So add missing usings and .razor file. So when I click that, it's going to go and add my missing using, light up the authorize there. Let me apply the update with hot reload, and the little purple squiggly gives me an indication that I'm not going to be able to hot reload this. I have to rebuild and apply changes. So there's a certain set of changes that do require that the app to stop running, and we're trying to minimize those number of scenarios there. Let me rerun the app so we can get back to square one.
So what are the scenarios that prevent hot reload from?
Some things are, one example would be adding attributes to classes. I think if you rename a method, like the method name itself, I think those are cases. If you add a class, and then there's also some specifics with Lambda expressions, I believe. So if you add some Lambda expressions, you might need to do a rebuild and restart there. But yeah, they're more kind of the larger kind of structural changes, right? If
Like
you change some
defining
variables or how they're assigned, those things should all work. But some of the larger changes, those will need to be rebuilt. But the team is working every day to kind of minimize those types of scenarios there.
Cool. And I also have a couple questions in chat.
Oh, okay, great. Sure, let's get to it.
So
What do you have?
on the authentication side is authentication client side.
Yeah, this is a totally client-side app. There's no server-side aspect to this. So let me do my network here so everybody can take a look. So in the network, let's do a refresh. So where is everything? Where's all? Let me make this bigger. Okay, so here we can see there's like a .NET one coming through. Yeah, right here. You see this guy? This .NET 6.0.2. This is for Blazor WebAssembly, and this is what's going to pretty much kind of get everything going here. So we're downloading .NET, and everything that I need is local here. So yeah, there's nothing happening on the server side, and the authentication is happening with JWT tokens here. And I'm not really an authentication expert, so if there's any kind of complicated authentication questions, I'll have to move those over. I'll have to redirect those basically, but yeah, we can see we've got an authentication service.js here as well, and this is a part of the kind of thing that manages all the authentication. But yeah, this is a Blazor WebAssembly. Everything's running in the client. We don't have anything running server side here.
Awesome. And the other question that we got is, what do I lose if I use Firefox instead of Edge for debugging or running this application?
Yeah, great question. So Firefox has some limitations with respect to certificates and whatnot. So it's going to be just 1 second. I got to get rid of this developer tools. Okay. All right. So yeah. So in general, you're not going to really lose a whole lot besides what I'll show you later, which is the Edge developer tools integration. But Firefox does make it a little bit more difficult to kind of debug local host applications. You always get the security warning. And the way that the Chrome-based browsers work are they look at the certificate that's being presented with localhost, and in this case, those certificates have been registered with Windows, and that's why they work without any kind of security implication on Chrome and Edge. But Firefox, they try to be a little bit more kind of secure. So yeah, you'll always see this with Firefox unless you specifically configure Firefox there. But outside of this, you should have the same kind of capabilities as when using Edge. for the most part. But later on, I'm going to demo some Edge developer tools, and that's kind of specific for Edge. But those are built into Visual Studio, so it doesn't matter what external browser that you're using for those, for just kind of running your application there. Yeah, yeah. But yeah, in general, you'll get the same kind of behavior there. Let me go into my homepage, and I'll make like a kind of a quick change so we can see that this is working. Hello, let's say hello Firefox. All right, so we'll go ahead and apply that change, and it should get updated here. And if I were to go back to my Edge, it should get. Oh, it didn't. It's not currently connected to this one, but yeah. So I have fived it into Firefox here. So yeah, the Firefox one got updated there. So yeah, in general, not much, but yeah, you'll have to go through and configure your certificates for Firefox to make sure that they work appropriately. So yeah, it should be about the same experience with Edge and Chrome.
That's great.
What else do we have? Any other questions?
I think those are the main questions for now.
Okay, great. So we looked at our counter page, how we can, we're prompted. There's a little login link here, but I could also provide some other additional content for the user who's not authorized. But now let's take a look at what's the behavior for fetch data, where I use the authorized attribute instead of the authorized view. So in this case, when users come to this page, they must be authorized. Let's go ahead. So now you can see when I went into when I went into fetch data, it just automatically went into the authentication flow. And previously we saw that, I selected to kind of stay signed in with that particular user. So it did kind of pick up those cookies or whatever and kind of sign me in there. So yeah, so that's kind of the difference between authorized view and authorized attribute there. Okay, all right, so let's go and do some different things here. So another, I will create a folder here that's called components. Okay, I'm going to go back to my fetch data page, and I'm going to take pretty much all the content that's here and just cut and paste that into my component. So where's my, oh, I need to create a new component. So here's one issue. See, I got this daily build. And you can see that I've got some kind of funky strings over here. So this is the kind of stuff that you run into with these daily builds, right?
Yeah.
So did I add my components folder? Yeah. So I'm going to add a new Razor component, and I'll call it, weather data, I guess. Okay, I will paste the, you can see I got the purple squiggly there. That tells me that hot reload will not be able to apply that change. One second, let's get this guy back. So let's paste that in. All right, so now I have pasted in my code. Oh, this is one thing that I don't like about that Windows Power Tools clipboard. I always kind of double paste things. Okay, so I'm missing the HTTP. I'll have to inject that, but let me see if there's a quick fix for that. I don't believe, no. Yeah, let me go ahead and grab the inject statement there as well from the fetch data page. We can just cut that because we're not using that there anymore. Let's go ahead and paste it at the very top. Save it. Okay. Weather data, weather forecast. So I will get rid of weather data. All right, let me go ahead and save it, and then we'll run it. Oh, okay. So now I've created a new component called weather data in components folder. So now I need to go back to my fetch data.razor and then use that new component. So I can do weather data. And then I should be able to control dot for the quick fix. So you can see I've got that add missing usings as well. And that's a new feature like what I mentioned before. Let's go ahead and run that. Let's see what happens.
Alrighty.
Okay, so let's do it one more time just to make sure that everything's all right. So great. So we can see that everything pretty much looks like it's working here. Let me just make another change from component. Go ahead and apply that with hot reload as well. So weather forecast from component. So I can see that that's working great, and add missing using was working there for that component as well. You go ahead and close out of this file. Another thing that's new is for the components, you can go to definition. Or maybe you can't. Let's try it one more time. Okay, so that's not working. I thought that was working. My bad. Okay, so that's fine. Let me show you something else that is new.
But that is
We'll
going to
go into
happen
the
from the looks of it.
yeah. That was supposed to be working over here. I'm not sure what's happening over here. Must be something going on. Okay, it's trying to do this one at least. But yeah, something must be happening with this build.
But I like the idea of that, being able to track down where you even defined a recent tag like this. So
Yeah, no, that's very helpful. You know, with a small app like what I'm demoing here, it doesn't really, you know, I can pretty much see all the files that I'm working with right on this kind of screen here. But you know, for a realistic app with hundreds of files or thousands of files, you know, the go to definition and peak definition are pretty. I'm gonna cancel that. They're very kind of value. Oh, it did end up going to weatherdata.razor somehow. Okay, all right. So it did end up working, but you know, just kind of took forever there. So I'm not sure what the deal was with that one. I apologize on that. Let's see, what else do we have here? Oh yeah, right. Okay, so one thing that I wanted to show that was new as well. Okay, so let me zoom in. Oh no, that doesn't have it. Okay, so one thing that you can do is with Blazor, when you're editing these .razor files, you know, you can have the code and the markup mixed in, right? So I've got one file that's got both my markup and my code. But you know, in some cases, it might make more sense to have the code in a separate file. You know, some people prefer everything to be in one view, and then some people prefer, you know, the markup and the code to be separated. And then in other cases, you know, you'll start with the code and the markup, but as the page gets bigger and bigger, then you might want to move it into a code behind. So this is one thing that's new. So I can see that I have this new gesture. So I right clicked and did the quick fix. And I can see now I have extract block to code behind. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and invoke that. And then I'll show you what that does in the editor there. So what that did was it created me a counter.razor.cs file. Let me show you that. And it created it in the same folder as counter.razor. And then Visual Studio will visually kind of nest counter.razor.cs under counter.razor there. And it brought in all that code. So let me go back to my counter.razor so we can see it. So we can see that that code snippet is no longer there.
mm-hmm.
And if I were to rerun this just to make sure that everything is still working.
Awesome.
All right, so I got my counter here. Counter is still working. And if I want to just double check that, you know, hey, this counter is actually happening from over here instead of plus plus, I can do a plus equals 2. And then go ahead and apply that with hot reload. So the count is at 5. Now it should increment by 2. So we can see that that has successfulully worked out for us. So yeah, that's another update there. Yeah. So
I love having that option. Cause personally, I like to have my C# code separated from what I'm doing, razor wise, so that's having that choice is pretty sweet.
Yeah, you know, I think I'm kind of in between. You know, I think I prefer to have the code and the markup in the same file unless it's getting really kind of hairy.
Yeah.
Because what happens is, you know, as you're kind of building it, man, it's so easy to just be able to see the code that's related to this, right? You know, here I can't see the code for increment count, right? You know, I have to go to definition, and I think this is new as well. I have to go to definition to it to actually see it and modify that, right? But,
Yeah.
you know, for a small view like this, you know, I think it does make sense to have some code here. And especially in cases where you're leveraging other kind of components as well, you know, the views, if you're leveraging components, you know, your views shouldn't be, they shouldn't have to be hundreds and hundreds of lines necessarily, right? You know, if you've got your kind of components laid out in certain ways, you know, you can kind of keep your views to be kind of, you know, pretty concise. So yeah, that's what I like to try to do. But, you know, obviously there are cases where, you know, it just gets kind of too hairy with too many lines of code here in the .razor file, and that's the moment where I'll kind of use that quick fix and refactor to an external file there. So yeah, so that's how we do it, you know.
Yeah.
All right, let's take a look at what else we have here. Okay, I'm going to open a different project here. All right, let me go to my... All right, Toolbox demo. Okay, so let me close all these files. Let me go ahead and run this application, and then I'll show you some new kind of capabilities that we have here. All right, where is it? Okay, so it brought it over here to this other screen. So let me bring it here. Okay, so this sample is actually part of the docs, and some of this is kind of currently wired up, and some of it's not. So we'll go and kind of explore this. So if I click on students, I can see that I've got a list of students here, and then I can edit these students and then interact with these things, right? But if I try to go to courses, I can see that that link is not working. Same thing for instructors and departments. So let me go to, let's take a look at this. So, why are those links not working here? So let me go into shared and then go to layout. Okay, so now let me go and kind of scroll this a little bit. So I can see it's students index, and that's the students link. And we do have that students index file here. But with courses index, the courses files are not appearing over here. So we have to kind of make those files, right?
Right.
So let me show you how we can do that in Visual Studio here. So let me make that smaller. I'm going to go ahead and create a courses folder here. So I'll say add new folder, courses. And then we can use scaffolding for this. So I will do a new scaffolded item. And then from here, this is a Razor Pages project. So I'm going to go ahead and filter to Razor Pages. And there's a few options here. I can either create an empty Razor page, a Razor page using Entity Framework, or I can create a Razor page using EF and wire up the CRUD operations, the create, read, update, and delete operations. So let's go ahead and pick that. I'll click Add here. The model class, there's already a course model defined here, so we'll use that. And for data context, we'll use the existing data context that this application is already using. Then we'll just go with the defaults here. Mm-hmm. What that's going to do is it will run the scaffolding tool, and then it will populate this courses folder with those files to create, read, update, delete, and to also view details. Oh, okay, so in this particular build, I always have to run this twice for some reason. I'm not sure why, but that's a bug that we will hopefully fix before it goes out. Let's go ahead and try it again. All right, cool. Let's take a look. So now if I look at the courses folder, I can see I've got these 5 files, and those are the same 5 files that are in students folder here. All right, let's run it one more time. Okay. All right, so let's go back to about, or back to home, students as we saw before, and now let's take a look at courses. All right, so here's the courses that are here, and I can go and edit these as well. So let's say I want to make the calculus into a 3-credit class instead of a 4-credit class. I can go ahead and do that. All right, so that's kind of scaffolding there, and we have some updates to scaffolding that I'll show here in a little bit. Let me go ahead and kill this. I will kill the running app here, and let me kill this as well.
That is so helpful, by the way, to have the scaffolding capabilities.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that would have been so many files you would have had to manually remember to create.
Yeah, I know. There's a lot of stuff in these files too, like looking at the index file. That one's not too bad. I think the details is the one that has, oh, well, maybe not. But anyways, yeah, there's a lot of files here. And
yeah, I mean, and if you didn't know how to format it properly or like what to even write in each one, you'd have to, pull out your documentation and do all these.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
That's right. Exactly. And, this is kind of a starting point too, I mean, you'll go ahead and do the scaffolding, but, from here you can customize this as you see fit and then kind of go from there, So now let me show you. Okay. All right. I'm going to show some updates that we have for Entity Framework. So this particular project is configured to use SQLite as the database. I'm going to delete these database files. But let me show you when I ran that application, how were those database files created to begin with? So in this project, there's a DB initializer. So if you run the app and the database doesn't exist, it will go ahead and create the database and also seed it with a bunch of this data as well. And this is great, but the problem is, if you make changes to your application, the DB initializer is not going to run again because the database already exists, unless you delete those database files and recreate them. All right, so normally how you would solve that is to use Entity Framework migrations. And normally I would have to go in and use the terminal for that. So I would normally have to use the .NET EF command to create and apply my migrations. But let me show you a feature that we're working on. And this has not been currently released, but it will be released in the next preview here. So I'm going to double click on Connected Services. Okay, so here we can see that it has detected some database connection strings, including my SQLite. So I will go ahead and expand this SQLite. And then in Connected Services, the model that Connected Services uses is that, it will try to automatically detect what it thinks are dependencies, and then present those here like what we've seen. But then the next step is to actually, connect or register those in Connected Services. So that's what I'm going to do with this connect option here. So this connect option doesn't do anything with the remote database. What it does is really just kind of register it with Connected Services, so that way then you can perform operations with those Connected Services. All right, so for connection strings, I'll pick my school context SQLite connection string. Yeah, okay, so I think I've got some additional kind of bugs over here. Let me just fix this real quick, and then we'll try again. All right, let me close out of that. Let me just do a refresh, actually. All right, so now it should be fixed. Yeah, so it was... Just one second, sorry. We got some bugs I'm trying to work around over here.
No worries.
But we'll hopefully get these fixed before we're done.
Release, yeah.
Yep. And then so I give the connection string name, and then here it's I think it was just cu.db. I don't remember if I had the /, but we'll go ahead and add it, I guess. All right, so we'll go ahead and click next there. And then it's going to add some NuGet packages and also for a secret store. So for the connection string that was there, it's going to store that in user secrets as well.
Awesome.
Even though there was no actual secret there, but it's still connection string. So I'm going to close that. All right, so now that I've made that connection, I can see I've got some additional options here, including add migration, update database, and generate SQL script. In the future, so in this flow, what we saw was I had to do a connect before I saw the options for add migration. But in the future, what we'll do is we'll go ahead and show these additional commands as well on the initial context menu, so you see that they're there. That way you can see them down here essentially. So that's the kind of plan.
That's pretty sweet. So once you're connected, is that it? Do you need to still test to see that your database or whatever else you have connected is functioning correctly, or does it?
No, and I'm not sure if connected is really the right word here. I think in my mind it's more registered, because you're not actually connecting to anything here. All you're doing is just kind of registering this dependency in Connected Services, so that way then you can perform operations on it. The changes that this made to my project were in properties and service dependencies, so it just adds this kind of stuff in here to the project. But no, it doesn't. There's not like a live connection to anything here. So yeah, that's why I'm not sure if connected is the right word here. I think maybe registered makes more sense to me. Did that kind of answer your question, Leslie?
Yeah, no, that makes sense.
Okay, great. Let's go ahead and try the apply migration. Let me bring the Solution Explorer back one more time. So if I were to zoom in, we can see that I don't have any migrations folders over here. And I also don't have that database. We're going to do the add migration. So it's going to go and try to detect the DB context. And before I came into here, one thing that I made sure to do was to stop the running application, including that terminal window that popped up, right? Because If you come to this screen and the app is still running, you're going to get a kind of, you will get an error message here. So that's why I made sure to close out of it. So yeah, I can give my migration a name if I care about the name or not, or I can just go with the default. So I'll just go with the default. So now it's calling. So let me zoom in on this one as well. So this is how I would have normally done this without this tooling. I would have dropped into the command line. I would have had to install .NET EF tool. And then I would invoke it with .NET EF migrations add, and then the name of my migration, and then the context. In this case, the project only has one context, so you could even leave that part off if you wanted. Yeah, and then we can see that, you know, we get the green check mark that everything was added successfully. So let's go take a look. So if I look in my migrations folder, I can see I have two files here. I have a snapshot file as well as a migration file. All right, so now we're all set. So you can check this in, and then your colleagues can download it and then run those migrations. So now imagine that you're ready to apply this migration. So let's go back to connected services, and then instead of add migration, I will use update database. So we'll give it a second to retrieve the DB context. All right, it's there. I found it. And like I said, this is the only one in this project. Let's go ahead and click finish here. So what this will do, it will basically connect to that database. In this case, it's a SQLite database that doesn't exist. So on connection, that database file will get created, and then all the pending migrations will be applied, right? And in this case, it's a brand new database, so no migrations have been applied. So all the migrations will be applied. Let's go ahead and click finish here. And once again, this is also another command line tool. So normally I would have to run .NET EF database update. But in this case, we can just use the Visual Studio tooling. And once again, I can see I've got the green check mark. I can see the CUDB file has showed up as well. And that's what happens with SQLite. When you make a connection to a file that doesn't exist, it will just go ahead and create that file. And then the migrations were applied to add the schema to it. So let's go ahead and run it. Okay, let me bring the browser over here. Let's go to students, and we can see we've got all that data. Courses is still working here. So yes, there we go. So that's kind of, you know, apply migrations. And, you know, as I work through this, right, you know, one example would be, you know, I've got a list of students here, and we're gathering certain types of data here, but one thing that we're not gathering is, you know, let's say email, right? So I could go through and add an email column to students, update my views, add a migration, and then update the database, and then we would be kind of off and running for that one as well. We could even try that, I guess, so that way everybody sees it. So let's go ahead and try that. We've got some time here, I think. So let me go into my models folder. For student, I will create a new field called email. I'll use the prop snippet. So I'll say this is a string, say email, go ahead and save that.
I need to take advantage of snippets more.
What was that?
I need to take advantage of snippets more.
Yeah, right. You know what's my favorite snippet?
What?
Is the exception snippet. Boom.
Oh,
now you got your exception here, you know what I mean? And we'll say Leslie.
Yeah.
Leslie exception. But anyways, yeah, that's my favorite kind of snippet there, is the exception snippet. But anyways, yeah, a lot of kind of cool snippets here. And I don't know if people noticed, but I kind of dragged and dropped some kind of information from here. These are snippets too that I just kind of custom created. You can just drag and drop whatever kind of information you want there. So anyway, and then you can also export those to different machines as well. So that's pretty cool. So yeah, I'm a big fan of snippets. All right, so now I've added my students' kind of my email field. So let's go through and start adding this to some of the views. So I'm going to go to pages, and not inside courses, but inside students. And then we can go ahead and start adding some of this information here. So display for enrollment. I'm just going to copy these basically. And this is the header part. So this is for header. So I'll say email. And then this is the grid. This is the body part of the grid essentially. Let's go into edit as well. So yeah, I'm just going to copy this, and we'll use IntelliSense here to kind of help us get along through this. From there, let's go to details as well. And this is the details part. So enrollment, yeah. It's email. Okay, all right, so that's fine. I think details. Let's go to delete, and inside delete, they just kind of show you the. Oh, I think my bad. Hold on a second. I think I messed this one up. Let's undo that. Let's do it like this. Just double check. Yeah, that's right. Okay. Let's do it one more time.
Comment in chat, databases are the worst.
Mm-hmm.
Yep, they have their perks.
All right. Yeah, I try to stay away from, if I can just store all my stuff in a JSON file, that's why I prefer to do that if I can, but
Yeah, I'm a JSON.
can't do that.
I'm not gonna lie.
Can't do that for everything, you know what I mean?
I know. It's so sad when you can't. It's like, no, I had a whole setup ready to go.
Mm-hmm. All right, so now I've got my views updated, I've got my model updated, but the thing that has not yet been updated is my actual database, right? So if I were to run this, I expect to get some sort of error. So let me go ahead and run that. Let me snap it back. Where's the browser here? Yeah, so I got some, see, there are pending model changes, right? And then I will tell you what you need to do to get this fixed with the .NET EF command line tools. But, if you're using Visual Studio and you prefer to kind of do it, with the UI, you don't have to do that. What we can do is we'll do add migration. It will, see, now I'm running into that problem of the app is running. So let me close the app, and then it detected it. And once again, I don't really care about the name of this migration, so I'll just kind of pick whatever. But you can always name it as well if you like. But if you apply migrations to a remote database, I would suggest that you never rename those migrations. Let me go ahead and close that. So we can see that it has created a new migration for me. I think it's the 3521. So it's adding the email field to the students column. Okay, so I added the migration. Now I need to update the database. So I'm going to go back and say update database. It'll take a second to kind of find that DB context, and then we'll click finish on that one when that's done. Go ahead and click finish on that one.
All right.
All right, database was updated. Let me run this one more time. Okay. So if all goes well, now I see my email field here. Obviously it's empty. We didn't add anything there. So we'll say Alex at example.com. So let's go ahead and try that. Let's see if it saves. Boom, there it is, Alex at example.com. And if I go to details, I can see that as well. And if I go to delete, they'll give you a little summary there as well. So yeah, there we go. So that's honestly, Leslie, I'm kind of like a command line driven type of person, and I do a lot of my stuff on the command line, like even with Git, and I'm a huge kind of PowerShell user there. So, I'm very kind of comfortable with command line, but and when my team was kind of initially kind of creating this feature, I thought, hey, this is probably a feature that I personally probably won't use that much. But after trying it, I have to admit, I feel pretty productive here. Like I don't have to drop into command line. I don't have to install the .NET EF tool that's already kind of taken care of for me. I don't have to worry if I misspell anything, or, and then for the other scenarios where there's more than one DB context, that's kind of difficult to spell out on the command line, because you pass in your DB context and you give like the full name for that class. So those are areas that I kind of trip up on. So after trying it out, I think I'm probably going to be using, I'll probably be using this over the command line, honestly.
Wow, shoot.
And it feels pretty productive, Yep.
Awesome.
And
you're not
there's
alone
one.
in being a terminal
Go ahead.
person. Oh, I said you're not alone in being a terminal person. We got another one from chat.
Yeah,
Saying
right.
That's cool. I'm like that with,
definitely.
I'm like that with Git commands personally. Like I love the Git integrations and stuff, but there's a part of me that still feels compelled to use the good old terminal for Git access. So yeah.
I never use any kind of UI for Git. I've just always been using the CLI for that, and I think I'll still do that. Yeah, for sure. Mm-hmm. But yeah, no, I love using terminal as well.
Yeah. We do have a question from chat. I don't know if I'm going to be interpreting it correctly, but I think the ask is on the migration scenarios, or OData or GraphQL related or compatible at all.
What's the question again? Oh, is it like OData or GraphQL, right?
Yeah.
I'm not sure what we're talking about here, but let me go back to students basically. So there's no kind of OData or GraphQL being used in this project at all. And what happens with scaffolding? Basically, scaffolding will inspect the model. So here I've got my model class, and before I use this course one. So scaffolding will inspect this model, and then it will generate a set of files locally on disk that can be used. And these were the files that were being created here. So if I look at my index, there's also an index.cs. So if I go into that CS file, so here's where it kind of reaches out to the database and gets that information and whatnot. So yeah, there's no GraphQL or OData being used here. Yeah, so I hope that this is all just kind of this is all generated code that's been added to your project that you can fully customize. Yeah.
Awesome.
So I hope that answered that question.
Yeah, hopefully that was the interpretation. And another question is to quote Robert from behind the scenes, shout out to Robert Green, is that EF goodness only available for web dev, and can it be used with WPF or Maui?
Okay. Yeah, right. That's a great question. I don't know the answer to it, but we can find out. Let's try it. It might be limited to these web projects, but let's try it. I don't think I have any. I don't have any WPF or. I don't think I have any WPF or Maui installed on this machine. Let me create a console app and see if it shows up over there. What am I gonna have to do for that? One second. I'm gonna have to do some stuff over here real quick. I'm gonna have to add a connection string into my app settings. So let's add a app settings here. We'll do JSON. So we'll say settings.json. Let me grab that connection string from over here. So that's fine. I'm not sure if this is going to work in the console project or not. But yeah, I would love to find out what types of projects people want this to work on. Let me go back and grab the other part of this. So I'll try this. But but honestly, I'm not sure because I don't connected server. I'm not like a connected services kind of expert as well. Let me rebuild that. Oh, it doesn't even show up over here. Yeah. I think this is. I don't believe we have any. Yeah, it doesn't. I think this is limited to web projects for now. But yeah, maybe in the comments, if people are interested in bringing this EF tooling and connected services in general to other project types, I would love to kind of hear about that. But yeah, I don't
also
think
go
I
to
have.
developercommunity.com and share your thoughts there.
Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's right. And the best way to kind of file a developer community issue is right inside Visual Studio. You can do send feedback. So let me go ahead and zoom in on that one. So in the help send feedback, you can either report a problem or suggest a feature. And don't worry if you get the right one. We can always change these after the fact as well. So that's not a problem. Okay, great. Awesome. I wanted to show another kind of scaffolding feature that has not yet been released, but will be released soon. So I need to fire up Visual Studio in a special way for this one. So let me fire it up over here. So yeah, this is another feature which has not yet been released. So I am going to open a project that I have previously created. So it's in temp and demos, toolbox, source. Oh yeah, minimal API. All right, so for APIs, there's for the ASP.NET Core Web API projects, there's essentially like you can either create them with controllers or without, and the whole without looks kind of like this, right? You get your program.cs, and then everything will happen inside this program.cs. And the word controller doesn't appear in any file over here. Let me go ahead and run this, and I'll show you what that looks like. Okay, let me bring it over. All right, okay, 1 second. It's not want to snap. Okay, there we go. All right, so now I can see that and this is kind of like an out-of-the-box kind of web API project. I haven't made any changes to this yet. And we don't have Swagger or Open API, as it's called, configured here as well. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and add I will add a model to this project, and pretty similar to what we created before. So I'll just say contact, and then we'll populate this. So we'll create a couple fields. So I'll create an ID property, a first name, a last name, and that's probably fine, I think. Let's go ahead and save that. I will go ahead and build this to make sure that everything is up to date. And then we're going to do scaffolding on it. All right, so now what I'll do is I will right click and say add new scaffolded item again. And this is an API, and it's brought me to the right location here. So the things that are new, so we previously did have we had these API controller scaffolders in the past. So that is not new, but what is new are these two endpoint scaffolders here. So let's go ahead and do that. So I'm going to pick API with read-write endpoints using Entity Framework. So I'll click Add. And similar to the scaffolding flow we went through before, I'll pick my model class, and for the endpoints class, you can pick which file you want that to go into, or you can create a new file. I'll go ahead and create a new file. Give it whatever name you want. It doesn't really matter. And there's no database context here, so I'll go ahead and create a new one. Go ahead and click Add on that. And I'll also go ahead and enable Swagger or Open API. Let's go ahead and add that. And this is like hot off the press. This is like, I got NuGet packages and a build from the developer to actually light up this this demo here for you guys.
So exciting.
But I did. Oh man, we're into
it. Jinxed it.
Yeah. Let's see. Okay, hold on a second. Let me. What did I do wrong here? Hold on just a second. Let me close out of this, and maybe let me close my other VS here too, and let me relaunch this. This is like a special. I have to launch it in this special way with certain kind of properties. Let's open that up one more. We'll try it one more time. This did work before, and it was pretty impressive. And I was going to show the diff as well for everything that gets added here. So hopefully I can make this work.
Fingers crossed.
Yeah, let me just make sure it builds. So I'll do Control-Shift-B. Make sure there's no problem with the build itself. All right, so we're good there. All right, we'll try it one more time. Add new scaffolded item. Yep. We'll go with contact, endpoints class, DB context, enable open API. We'll click add. What did I miss something up here? Let me think about this. No, this should work. This should work. It worked before. Yeah. Okay, great. All right, so this is working for us. So let's take a look at what was generated over here. So it created a endpoints class.cs. Let's go ahead and take a look at it. So here, it looked at my model, the contact, and then it's lighting up certain kind of API routes here. Get all contacts, or get a contact by an ID, or update a contact, so on and so forth. Let's go ahead and run this. So if you recall correct, last time I ran it, it just went to the weather forecast page and the information was dumped there. But we should, now that we've enabled Open API, we should see the Swagger page instead. So let me, it doesn't change I guess it didn't change the start. What's that URL? It's a Swagger V1 or something. What is that? V1 Swagger, I think, or what is it? Let me do a new web API that has Swagger built in, so I can get that URL. So I'll create new. We'll do web API, it's not here. And then I will select, I'll enable Open API. Let's try that. This is just for the URL. I forget what there's a certain URL that I need to use here. I just forget what that is. All right, it should be here. So let me go into launch settings and we'll take a look. What is it? Maybe it's not. Let me just run it.
I'm really bad at remembering URL.
Yeah.
Your
Oh, it's just swagger.index. Okay. All right, let's try this one again. I'm pretty sure this was different in the past. Okay. Anyway,
right.
so now I see I've got my Swagger page, and I can also see I've got my contacts here, right? So get contacts, post, so on and so forth. So here I can try it out, and obviously there's not going to be any contact here, because I never created any contacts. Oh, status 500. So yeah, that's fine. I think what I forgot to do was the whole kind of entity framework and all that sort of stuff. But anyways, I think we don't have too much time for that, but.
It's a cool
But yeah,
sneak
I'd
peek.
have to hook up all that database stuff over here, I think, to oh, this is even the wrong, that's not even the right instance of Visual Studio here. I would have to hook it up over here. So if I go to Solution Explorer, Connected Services, I would have to basically kind of redo that flow again for update database to get everything working there.
Okay.
But yeah, that's the kind of general gist of it. And how much time do we have left, Leslie?
We're actually a little bit over time, so
Oh, okay. Okay.
but I mean, clearly there's so much going on that really does help improve that web
Hmm?
dev experience. It's really cool to see.
Yeah, even we don't have enough time to share it, I want to share out this link here. So I have aka.ms/edge tools for VS. So let me
Kind
copy
of bigger
that,
below, better.
and then let me paste it. So we currently have a preview extension that integrates the Edge developer tools into Visual Studio, and it's at that AKA link. So if people can download and try that out, that would be great, and provide some feedback as well. And yeah, so that's also another thing that we're working on, and we'll be building that into Visual Studio. That way, users don't have to download this extension. But we have a couple other things to fix before we can do that.
That's
Yeah, so
exciting.
that's yeah, very exciting for me for sure.
Yeah, and so a lot of those preview features that you explored, is that happening in the next upcoming preview you said? So 17
Yeah,
too?
yeah, yeah. Everything that I showed here should be in the next preview of Visual Studio. That's right. Yep.
Exciting. Great. Well, Sayed, thank you so much for joining. You're going to have to come back because I'm sure there's way more web dev experience things that we haven't even talked about in this hour. So
Yeah, yeah. Had a few other kind of things on my list that I wanted to show here, but there's not time for everything. So
yep.
yeah, definitely would love to come back at some point, Leslie. Thank you very much for having me as well.
Awesome. And until next time, y'all, happy coding.
Thank you. Bye bye.